Hey, we already heard all of this stuff.
It's likely recapping the events of the last movie, Nora.
They likely did not expect you to watch these movies back to back.
Still a cool logo.
Agreed, Ms. Rose.
Moscow? That's an interesting name.
They got any good clothes in this place?
Moscow is the capital of the Russian Federation, or Russia, the largest country in my world, and an on-again, off-again ally of America, the nation Tony's from. And, yes, Coco, the country itself has a long history of traditional fancy clothing.
What a dump. It certainly won't be as easy as you make it sound, but we'll all work with you to see it through, Ruby.
Well, Russia is considered a second-world country, which means that it's not very poor, but it's still not as developed as other countries.
That man looks quite ill.
That's Anton Vanko. His role will be important later. But as for why he's this way, he's been drinking himself to death for the back half of his life.
Such a cruel fate. Truly a shame.
Poor guy.
To lose a parent before your eyes, that's another level of heartbreaking.
So this Vanko guy worked with Tony's old man?
Yep.
They must have had some falling out then for him to be here like this.
Unbelievable.
Tony's best engineers couldn't even make a small arc reactor.
It may not look as impressive as Tony's, but it still begs the question how much this man matches Tony in intelligence.
Ew!
He needs to take better care of his teeth.
Remember, Miss Belladonna, this man does not seem to be in the wealthiest environment. Dental care may not be reasonable for him.
Woohoo! Awesome! Let's see more Iron Man.
Hopefully that's as depressing as the movie will get.
Sounds like they're preparing to drop into enemy territory.
Stark, working with the military? Perhaps he'll actually show some signs of tactics and military precision.
Nice.
Oh, yeah!
He certainly knows how to make one hell of an entrance.
His arrogance is starting to show through.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with wanting to put on a show.
So he improved the suit removal machinery? Impressive.
Looking good with that tux.
A big expo like this is certainly cause for dressing up.
One day, people will cheer for me like that. Wow, Weiss, I forgot how humble you were. That's impressive for one man.
We'll be like that too one day. We'll make sure the world is at peace and get rid of the Grim.
It certainly won't be as easy as you make it sound, but we'll all work with you to see it through, RWBY.
Yes, we will always stand by your side when you need us, RWBY.
She may just be the one to bring us to victory. Her soul is smaller, but far more honest than any of us.
While it is impressive, please get over yourself.
Hey, it may be a little egotistical, but if he's wrong, then I'll hand in my huntsman's license.
That's not going to be the case for much longer, unfortunately.
Pride comes first before the fall, I'm afraid.
Oh, General, Professor Ozpin, perhaps we should do something similar, gathering the finest minds from each kingdom and supply them with the proper resources. The possibilities they'd achieve could be endless.
We'd have to get in touch with the other headmasters, but I have to admit, Oz, it's an excellent idea.
Perhaps once we return, we'll speak to Leonardo and Theodore.
So that's Tony's father? He looks like a respectable man.
I wonder what cool things he made. He must have made some awesome stuff, right? Probably before Tony was born.
Oh, he definitely made the coolest thing ever. Even better than the Iron Man suit. But that's 2 movies away.
Ooh, cool. I always love models.
Really? I didn't think you'd have the patience for them.
She'd force me to assemble them, then just stomp through and destroy them, pretending she was some kind of giant monster.
Blood toxicity? Is Tony sick?
Probably just him drinking again, right?
Unfortunately, that is not the case, Ms. Xiaolong. Blood toxicity and blood alcohol content are 2 different things. The former is essentially poison in the bloodstream. So, at 19%, that means nearly 1/5 of Tony's blood is poisoned.
It will be explained later, but to properly explain this now, since I'll probably forget later, the palladium that powers the arc reactor is what's slowly poisoning him. This causes liver disease and tissue damage to the gut, kidneys, and lungs. And it's a carcinogen, which means it can cause cancer.
So, it's like the Vital Festival?
It doesn't seem so, sister. Technology seems to be the focus here.
Aw, that's cute.
Indeed. An important part of being a huntsman is still interacting with people and ensuring that they feel positive, safe, and most importantly, to secure their trust and fate in us.
Stanley!
Finally, I hated those POV shots.
They were pretty disorienting.
Such vulgar man.
She's got a nice outfit, though.
Sounds like a boy's name.
That's kind of rude, Yang. No name is really for one gender. Be more progressive.
I assume Irish is another country.
Ireland, yes. Irish is what you call people from there, like how you schnees are at lesions, and son would be vacuoan.
I wonder why.
It could be for honest reasons. Ha! See?
Okay, Ruby, no need to rub it in.
An Armed Services Committee. We actually have that.
Indeed. For Tony to have to appear in front of them, it must be serious.
9 a.m.? That's too early.
Well, what can you say? It's the government. Tony doesn't have any choice. They can make his life a living hell.
He should have more respect for an officer of any kind.
To be fair, asking for a badge is completely justified. He could have a scammer in front of him.
Does he plan to drive there in one night?
There's no way.
Whoa, did they seriously drive 250 miles overnight?
Surely they must have went somewhere to where he has a private jet or something.
Or, considering Tony's lack for the law, it's possible he was speeding the whole time.
So, who's the guy Tony's answering to?
Senator Stern. He's trying to, well, you'll see in a minute.
Senator? That sounds like an interesting position. What exactly are his duties then?
From what I've seen of your world, the best description would be he's like one of your councilmen.
I see, but that's still quite vague. Would you care to describe how your world's government works, Mr. Gian?
Maybe next time.
That's absurd. What else could it possibly be other than a weapon?
James, calm yourself!
I mean, the suit has a lot of weapons in it, but the suit itself is just armor. And it could be considered a form of prosthetic, since it can monitor Tony's vitals and help him move.
I was about to say the same thing. Well done, RWBY.
Ha! Looks like my niece has a better understanding of weapons than you, Jimbo.
It's obvious the Iron Man suit can be used as a weapon, and Tony himself did just that to destroy his old weapons. It all depends on how it's used.
For what, exactly?
That's a good question. Why don't we ask the tin can here?
What are you trying to insinuate, Crow?
All right, that's enough, you two. Now, without spoiling too much, the senator's motives aren't exactly for the people.
Yang, Crow, and Coco laughed at the prostitution joke as Blake and Velvet blushed, while Glinda, Winter, Weiss, and Ironwood rolled their eyes, and RWBY just sat there, confused.
Tony's the only one who knows the ins and outs of the suit anyway. In anyone else's hands, it's useless.
Impressive logic, Ms. Rose.
Ooh, epic burn, Tony!
Based on Tony's comment and the overall look, the man doesn't seem like the expert type. But then again, at first glance, neither does Tony.
He looks like a nerd trying to look cool.
So is he going anywhere with this, or?
The only possible point I can think of is simply mentioning Tony's father to get under his skin, and judging by Tony's reaction, it was at least somewhat effective.
Canada?
It's a country just north of the USA. The biggest stereotype about them is they're extremely polite and friendly. Therefore, there's little to no crime there. And Americans constantly making fun of things like that and acting like they're better than the Canadians is why the majority of the world hates the USA.
Oh, so America's like Atlas?
Hey!
Why would someone make fun of the fact a place can leave their doors unlocked? It's good if your crime rate is that low and you feel that safe.
No, it wasn't. He didn't say anything important or even relevant to this trial.
He made a semi-decent point mentioning there are threats Stark can't always foresee, Ivan Vanko being an excellent example, but the rest was simply rambling.
Hey, he looks different.
In the last Iron Man movie, Rhodes' actor was the highest paid, so Marvel replaced him to avoid the pay cut.
I can understand that, but the difference between the former and this new one is incredibly noticeable.
Why is Rhodey being so mean?
It's a serious situation, Ruby. Friends as they may be, Tony could get in trouble for being too out of line. Rhodey just wants what's best for him.
Why would he only want to read a certain part? That makes most of the report meaningless, and people may not understand certain things out of context.
He's trying to control the discussion and use specific information against Tony out of context, much like you just said, Ms. Schnee.
Father often does the same things at press discussions or council meetings for events that he feels affect him negatively. So anything he doesn't like.
That's not fair. You're using information in a way that it wasn't meant to be used in.
I feel more bad for Rhodey that he wrote that whole thing, but that senator jerk is only using bits and pieces that suit him.
Politicians rarely play fair.
Oh, come on, at least let him defend his friend.
Dirty politicians. Looks like our world isn't that different in that regard.
And he doesn't seem to care about non-spreading concern amongst the public. Poor form for a government official.
Sadly, most of America's officials are like that.
Unfortunately, focusing on personal gain has and always will be a dark part of man's nature.
So other nations are starting to make Iron Man suits, but I thought that's impossible without the arc reactor.
Penny, curious as ever, enhanced her vision to get a better view of these images.
The designs on all of these prototypes look to be severely flawed. I don't think they'll be highly functional, if operational at all.
This caused the audience to look at the android with strange looks.
Wow, he is good.
True, but I personally wouldn't advise hacking into government equipment right in front of them, in a courtroom.
You ran where?
No, Penny. I ran as a country.
Oh no, that poor man!
You do not want to work for that guy.
A nearly full 180-degree rotation of the body. The accepted range of motion for rotation is 60 to 80 degrees, double to triple the accepted range. This would likely result in spinal fracture or even separation of the spine, with probable lacerations of nearby tissue, muscle, and blood vessels, as well as tearing of the muscles due to hyperextension, all causing internal bleeding. I estimate recovery would take 6 to 10 weeks, but surgery, which would most likely be required, would at least double this recovery time. Survival? Possible. Full faculty recovery? Unlikely. Subject will likely be permanently paralyzed from the waist down.
Everyone looked at her in shock. Ironwood, Ruby, and Winter looked between each other nervously, the only ones knowing about Penny being an android before Winter spoke up.
But very good, Penny. You certainly take after your father. She's the daughter of Pietro Polendina, one of Atlas' top minds.
The students accepting this fact, the rest of Ozpin's faction, however, still looked suspicious, but decided not to press the issue.
But this is exactly why you make sure you have all the tech figured out and start out with robots before you even think about upgrading to manned vehicles. That's the reason we lost Arthur Watts. He wanted to test the Paladins before we believed they were ready, and no soldier would pilot it, so he attempted it himself and died in a crash.
Thank goodness.
Still, this man should not be allowed to develop such dangerous machinery with such reckless safety procedures.
That is pretty impressive. It took a war with all of our kingdoms for us to reach that.
And even then, peace feels shaky at times.
Swear jar!
Nice one, Tony.
This guy's awesome.
Those things are so cool.
Pay attention, Squirt. I'd be willing to bet he's the villain of this movie.
So thoughts?
It's really cool to see Tony back and that he's like an even bigger celebrity now that he's Iron Man.
Yeah, but I'm a little worried about that toxic blood thing.
I'm curious about Ivan and what his plan is. Clearly he wants to destroy Tony, but why? What could have happened between their fathers?
I'm wondering what the rest of Ivan's outfit's gonna be. Those whips look cool, but he's probably gonna need more than that to tangle with an Iron Man suit.
I want to take him on. Those whips would just make me stronger until I could just break them in half.
Nora, clearly these people are in a different league than us. If he believes those whips could take down Iron Man, they could likely take any of us down in 1 or 2 hits.
Oh, you guys deserve more credit than that. I'm sure any one of you could take on Ivan, in his first appearance at least.
I'm wondering where their government's attempts to acquire an Iron Man suit will go. I highly doubt it will end here.
I believe it would be unwise for the suit to be given to the government. Considering the current state of the world, assuming Mr. Stark has indeed achieved world peace, the military suddenly being given this weapon would only be seen as a sign of hostility.
I'm looking forward to seeing some new suits. I doubt we're only just going to see the Mark III the whole time. That'd be boring.
Anyone else have anything to say?
I believe anything we have to say has already been said.
Very well. Let's continue.